I'm firmly of the opinion that we, the human beings living on this planet, should not be keeping reptiles in captivity. To be clear, I'm not saying that we, the reptile keeping community, should be getting rid of all our reptiles. I'm saying that we shouldn't have got them in the first place. When I first kept snakes, which was about 40 years ago, I knew so little about them, my husbandry was tantamount to abuse. The vivs were heated by light bulbs that flashed on and off throughout the day, so they had no day or night cycle. If there was a temperature gradient, it wasn't by design. I had no idea what the humidity was or any way to check because I didn't have a hygrometer. I didn't know what a hygrometer was. Obviously, it ended badly. After that, I thought I would never keep snakes again, and yet here I am, living in a 3-boa household. So how did that happen? A few weeks ago, a friend of mine told me that she'd never been able to understand my obsession with animals, and I was surprised because I didn't realise she thought I had one. I have got one, but I didn't think that it was something that people particularly noticed about me. Anyway, we'll put a pin in that for the moment. I got back into the idea of keeping snakes again when I was working in Myanmar a few years ago. I was out there on my own. My wife was still in the UK and I was feeling very lonely and watching a lot of YouTube. And somehow or other, reptile videos got into my feed. I must have clicked on something or searched for something that nudged the algorithm in that direction, but I honestly don't know what it was. Anyway, I watched a ton of reptile videos, especially ones about snakes. In fact, it was only by watching those videos that I realised quite how terrible my husbandry had been back in the 80s. But in addition to making me feel shame and self-loathing, the videos I was watching fascinated me and made me feel really excited. Morphs was something I'd never heard of before, and although I'm not really a big fan of morphs now, initially I got really into learning all about them. The big thing for me, though, was all the different types of boas that I'd never heard of before. The Tarahumara boa, the Cruel Key, the Pearl Island boa, and the Hog Island boa, of course. We've got a Hog Island boa now. Over a period of months, I realised I wasn't just idly binge-watching snake videos. I really wanted to give snake keeping another go. The main stumbling block as I saw it was this. I've been a vegetarian for about 37 years because I love animals and I don't want anyone to have to kill animals on my behalf. It seemed wrong, therefore, to support the mass breeding of mice and rats that were only going to get eaten by snakes. I'll go further. I think it is wrong and I don't feel good about it. I thought that would be enough to stop me getting a snake. But then one evening I was talking to my wife on Zoom and I was telling her how much I wanted to get a snake, but how I wouldn't be able to do it because it would mean we'd have to feed the snake mice and then rats. And she said she wouldn't have a problem with it. She's a vegetarian too, by the way, but she was partly raised on a farm, so her attitude is somewhat different. Anyway, it turned out that my moral objection wasn't strong enough to withstand what, by this time, was a very strong desire to get a snake, especially now that it was backed up by the knowledge that my wife wouldn't mind if I got one. So I got one. This time round, I wanted to do everything right. Talk to experts, get the best advice so we could provide the best possible environment for our snake. But that was what I did 40 years ago, kind of. There wasn't any internet then, and I was 20 and an idiot, so I didn't read a book. But I did talk to the guy in the shop, who by the standards of the day was kind of an expert. He told me what kind of vivarium to buy. He told me how to heat it. He didn't mention anything about temperature gradient or humidity or day-night cycle. He said I wouldn't need any furniture or any plants or anything. He said because snakes don't care what their living rooms look like. And he sold me one of those little stick-on thermometers, which we all now know are rubbish. This time round, I wanted to avoid making any mistakes, which wasn't as easy as it might have been because now there's so much information out there and there are so many people saying so many different things about the way things ought to be done. But we managed to bring our husbandry more or less in line with most of the information we'd be gathering, and I'm pretty sure that life for our 21st century snakes is better than it was for my poor corn snake back in 1980. But this time round, I did something that I don't think I did at all back then, which was that I thought about it. I mean, I looked at Lulu in her vivarium and I thought about what life must be like for her. There's a school of thought according to which snakes can live happily in captivity because they're safe and because they're not intellectually sophisticated enough to be anything other than happy, providing their basic needs are being met. My question for anyone who goes to that school is, are you sure? My feeling is that Lulu here is probably pretty content in the 2 or 3 days after she's been fed, just sleeping and digesting her meal. I certainly don't think she'd be happier if her postprandial snooze was interrupted by a laughing falcon trying to access her sky hide. That's a species of falcon that lives in Honduras, by the way, not just a falcon with the giggles. But what about the rest of the time? She goes through phases of being incredibly active, covering every inch of her vivarium in an effort to find a way out. We don't know why she does this, maybe it's breeding behaviour, who knows. If we're in the room with her, we'll open the viv doors and she'll come down her ladder, she'll crawl onto a chair, she'll crawl onto another chair, she'll crawl onto the top of a cupboard where we keep an old-style record player, and she'll curl up on the turntable and she'll usually stay there until bedtime. She might not care that on her journey across the living room to the record player turntable, she's surrounded by soft furnishings rather than encino trees, or that instead of a forest floor carpeted with bromeliads, there's an actual carpet. But one thing's for sure, whatever her mission is, whether it's looking for a mate or something else, it won't be fruitful. But let's say she doesn't care about that either. What about the times when we're not there to let her out, like when we're asleep, for example? She recently got a nasty looking scab on her nose, we assume because she was pushing against the glass doors of the vivarium trying to find an exit. That's not good, is it? You're probably wondering where I'm going with this, so I'll try to draw some threads together. I mentioned at the start of the video that I'm not suggesting that snake keepers should get rid of their snakes. I'm certainly not getting rid of mine. I also mentioned that I have an obsession with animals, and that obsession has led me to do some stupid things over the years, including getting snakes when I was 20 and had no idea how to look after them. The same obsession guided my actions 40 years later when we first got Lulu, when I had some serious and very sensible reservations. I can't look at our boas in their 3 little boxes and convince myself that they're as happy as they might be if they were living in South or Central America or Madagascar. But we've got them now, and I love having them. The only thing we can do is to keep upping our husbandry game and keep making improvements to the way that we're keeping them. Maybe you're thinking about getting a snake. Let's say you're thinking about getting a baby boa constrictor, a true red-tailed boa. Probably not the best choice for a first snake, but since this is a hypothetical snake, you can have any species you want. Before you buy your snake, try this experiment. Picture a vivarium 4 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet, and now picture how many times that vivarium would fit in the park closest to your house. Now picture how many times that park might fit into the Amazon rainforest, and that will give you some idea of the kind of restrictions you'll be placing on your pet's movements. If you then find that the idea of keeping a pet snake has lost its appeal, good for you. Take up watching snakes in the wild instead. Go to places they hang out, don't touch them or interfere with them in any way, just make some memories, take some photos, and then go back the next weekend and do it again. But if you're like me and you find the urge to share your living space with a snake is just too strong, go into it knowing that you might spend all your time worrying about them and that you'll never be able to create an environment that will live up to their genetic ancestral memories of the Amazon or Honduras or wherever.